Hi, thanks for joining the breakdown. I'm James Sayer, and this episode is called A Message to American Conservatives. Now, that's for anyone really who leans conservative here in the United States, so you may not necessarily think of yourself as a Republican or a conservative necessarily, but if you lean conservative, this message is really geared towards you. We need you. America needs you. And liberals and progressives need you. And your country needs you right now. And when I mean that, I say we need conservative wisdom to balance the excesses of liberals. Everyone can get carried away and make mistakes. Even the most well-intentioned of people who are trying to help others can devise systems or policies that don't help everyone and cannot sometimes be more harmful and create more harm than good. So we need conservative input, conservative competition, the competition of ideas in our society. And America needs that. And America has a very strong tradition of conservatism in this country. And we've seen that go through some difficult times. American conservatism has been struggling in recent decades. And this message is about wanting you to come back to who you really, truly meant to be and profess to be and claim to be. But some of you have seemingly lost your ways just terribly, horribly so. And there have been many conservatives, American conservatives, who have acquitted themselves in recent years, like Mitt Romney or Jeff Flake and others. Liz Cheney recently standing up, to just say, hey, yeah, the vote was legit. Joe Biden's going to be president. Everybody needs to accept that. Just the fact that is controversial within the Republican Party shows how far the Republican Party has fallen in recent years. And it is a shame because the Republican Party has a proud history in many respects, obviously most notably with Abraham Lincoln, and certainly too with Teddy Roosevelt, who was also a Republican, a major, but truly also he was a Republican, but a very progressive Republican, not what anyone would really consider a conservative in too many respects. But America needs that, right? We need the conservative input, just like conservatives need liberal input. The idea we need for balance, to balance the interests out, right? Typically, conservatives generally favor, smaller government, very pro-business, for any policies that are going to make things easier on the business community, right? And that's good up to a point until the businesses become too powerful and they're not regulated enough and they're just walking all over everybody, destroying the economy and trashing the environment. That's why you need regulations and government intervention to prevent that. So there's a balancing aspect. And I think a lot of conservatives in America used to understand that there was a balancing nature of the contest between progressivism and conservatism. That there was a necessary tension that existed there. That wasn't bad. That it wasn't negative. I mean, you could make it negative, and it could often seem negative or become negative, but it doesn't have to be negative. It only becomes negative if you make it so, if you choose to go that route, but it's not a requirement. But we've seen in recent years the demonization by the Republican Party of Democrats and of liberals and progressives and people who don't agree with their approach, that Democrats are somehow these rabid lunatic socialists that hate God and want to control every aspect of your lives and just tremendously represent what Democrats are trying to do. And then that's not to say that conservatives don't have their legitimate points of criticisms. They do. But it's the demonization, the misrepresentation that has gone on for decades now by the Republican Party. A lot of it started with, the misrepresentations about socialism that have been going on for over 100 years in this country. And that was to be expected in a very capitalistic society, that the forces, the powers that be, the powerful conservative forces at work would want to, blunt the effects of socialism to maintain their power. Um, and two, it's also understandable that there was fear of socialism during the Cold War. The fear that some socialist leaning people might divulge secrets to the Russians or try and help who was our existential enemy at that time. That they would betray us. I mean, there was a lot of those fears were overblown, but there was some justification for it, right? And when you would see like the excesses of certain socialist countries or socialist leaning countries, or ostensibly communist countries that like Russia or Cuba or some country, and see the crimes against human rights and civil rights and the different atrocities that they would commit. But we're not innocent either. Our foreign policy has been quite brutal, over decades, over centuries. I mean, we're guilty too. But we do have, in the United States, and Russia's a great country. I'm not trying to get into a competition here. I think the Russians deserve a lot more respect than they get. But we do have a much more liberal society, meaning respect for individual rights, and we want to keep that. We don't want to get rid of that. And that's a proud tradition of conservatism, is the respect for individual rights, and the respect for the rule of law. And we've seen that degrade recently with a lot of conservative-leaning people, Republicans, in particular, many Republicans, supporting the rioters that attacked the Capitol. And there was a poll recently taken, I believe, that 70% of Republicans believe that the election was stolen, even now, and that I think it's 23%. The Washington Post poll done in December found that 23% of Republicans believe in QAnon. That is not conservatism. Conservatism is not about believing in crazy conspiracies. Conservatives, traditionally base their decisions wisely on evidence, right? On numbers, on hard numbers and hard facts. That has sort of been their reputation, that conservatives were the more realistic big brother to the idealistic liberal little brother who wanted to save the world, that the big brother who knew how things really worked and how things really got done, that steely-eyed big brother was that was always really big about the importance of defense and self-reliance. That's the reputation of conservatism that exists in this country even now, but that reputation is no longer deserved. It's been betrayed. You've given up the mantle regarding, fiscal conservatism long ago with Reagan, with his reckless tax cuts and deficit spending and blowing up the deficit. And that's continued on for years and years with the expansion of Medicare Part D and exploding the unfunded mandate for that, the unfunded liability, exploding by trillions of dollars. No true conservative would have ever supported a measure like that, but that happened under Bush too. The fact that 23% of Republicans claim to believe in QAnon, and maybe they haven't went on with the pollsters, but whatever that number is, I've seen the numbers vary a bit, anywhere from like 10% to like 23%. But whatever that number is too high, way too high. 70% of Republicans thinking that the elections were stolen, that Marjorie Taylor Greene in Congress has such strong support by Republicans, and that Kevin McCarthy is not willing to hold her responsible for her insane actions and comments. The crop of leaders that they're sending into Congress now, these people are wildly unqualified and unhinged. We're talking about Lauren Boebert. We're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the young Cawthorn fellow. These people are not qualified. They don't know what they're talking about. They're wildly I hate to criticize people with intelligence, but they don't know what they're doing. They shouldn't be in office, and they're actually dangerous. They've voiced support for, and I'm not talking about Cawthorn now, but I'm talking about Boebert and I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. They both, voiced support for violent actions, and these people should not be in Congress. Violent actions against our leaders. Crazy conspiracies like QAnon, supporting those, it's inexcusable. It's utter nonsense, and it's embarrassment to the Republican Party. It's an embarrassment to conservatives. You're better than that. My grandfather was a conservative. He would be disgusted beyond belief at what he's seen. I can't imagine, if he was still alive, what he would think and how ashamed he would be of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is likely dead. There's too much support for the craziness and for the hostility, the insane, uncooperative unwillingness to negotiate at all. And it's been childish, and it's been going on for decades. It was bad under Reagan, but it got worse with Newt Gingrich. He was very unreasonable, and the Republican Party was highly hostile and highly aggressive, unnecessarily so, becoming in the 90s, but then getting even worse with Bush 2, right, and the war on terror. It got worse then, and even worse with the Tea Party extremism during Barack Obama's terms. And culminating in Trump's logical absurdities. Just unbelievable. And for it to continue, it can only be disastrous. Not just for all of us. Liberals, conservatives, everyone in the middle, everybody. It'll be a disaster for our entire country to continue down this road. Conservatives, please, you can no longer truck with lunatics, people that believe in crazy conspiracy theories, people that want to overthrow the government, people that justify trying to overthrow the government and continue to maintain claims of a fraudulent election that do not exist. And if you this is a message to conservatives who value democracy. And that is a true conservative. A conservative respects democracy, respects the rule of law, respects the sanctity of a person's vote, even if it's not of their party. A true conservative respects that. To defraud, trying to defraud 81 million people of their vote for their president is unimaginable, I think, to most true conservatives who stuck to their guns. And I think that a lot of you folks have just lost your way. It's been effective up to a point to be so extreme, but it's backfiring now horribly for our whole country. And I think the idea that conservatism exists to stop unnecessary change or to slow too rapid change that could be dangerous or destructive to the economy or to the country, or change that is policies that are poorly conceived, right, with all sorts of externalities and repercussions that weren't considered. That we need conservatives to help us shape our policies better. But we can't do that if you don't work with us, if you're not willing to share your ideas intelligently, respectfully, honestly, and openly. That needs to be the exchange. And progressives, for you need to be willing to listen to conservatives. And, I think you have been. I think that the demonization of Democrats has been so insane across the board. There's this idea that by a lot of Republicans that liberals are not willing to work with Republicans, and that's not true. I'm not saying it can't be difficult sometimes, right? Especially on some of the really controversial issues where we can't seem to find a place to meet. But Democrats want to help people, and I think that's true for most Republicans and conservatives too. We want to help people. I don't believe that conservatives don't care about other people. Well, some of them do. Some conservatives don't actually care about other people. I've talked to them and I know them. But I think that's not true for most conservatives. I think they believe that just the conservative approach helps people better, that it's better in the long run. I don't really see that being borne out in the facts personally, but I respect people that say, hold on a second, let's slow this down. Let's make sure we've thought this through. Let's make sure this is fair to everybody to people's religious liberty. Let's make sure this is fair, that we're not taking anybody's property unfairly under eminent domain, right? We're not violating their rights to their property or their rights to due process. Let's make sure we have a strong, defense that our country is safe and that we can protect our interests abroad and protect our allies. Absolutely. That's very important. These are conservative principles that make total sense, right? But conservatives also have always known you got to pay for stuff. If you want something, you got to pay for it. And you gave up on that years ago. If you want to talk about the Trump tax cuts, or you want to talk about all the tax cuts that have been going on since Reagan, and how that's just blown up the deficit, and the idea that tax cuts are going to lead to deficit reduction has never ever not once worked. So it's time to give up that bogus economic argument of trickle-down economics that needs to just be shelved forever. Move on from that. But we can work together. But it's time to stop trying to thwart change that needs to be done. If you're not happy with the pace of it, or you're not happy with how we're trying to do it, fine, help us fix it, make it better. But we have to fight climate change. We have to fix infrastructure. We have to improve our healthcare system. Doing nothing is not an option. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to Democrats, and it's not acceptable to most Americans, for that matter. Now, keep in mind, only 30% of Americans identify now as Republicans. Okay, so 30%. That's a big chunk, but yeah, more people identify as either independents or Democrats now. So, but 30% is still a big chunk, and evangelicals, especially in the electorate, punch way above their weight by at least 10%. Have at least 10% more power than they probably should, just because they're so active and so aggressive. And so I'm going to say to all you evangelicals out there, if you think that Jesus would support what you're doing right now, you have got to be out of your mind. You have got to be out of your mind if you think Jesus would have supported Donald Trump and all the things that he has done. Right? Regardless of what you believe about abortion and whether it should be legal or not, and whether women should have access to it at all or not, or if there should just simply be more restrictions, you have to understand that other people have a different point of view, right? And that you cannot force your religious beliefs on other people, right? Your religious beliefs are not a sound basis for public health strategies. Okay, it's noble and it's commendable to care about the unborn and to be concerned about their rights and potential suffering. Not to mention just whether it's right to end a life, right? Before it's born. I think these are legitimate concerns. That is not a justification to overthrow a country. That is not a justification to make partnership with racists and traitors and scoundrels and con men and liars and flat earthers, and you know it. It's not a justification. Being concerned about immigration is a legitimate concern. All right. Now, Democrats obviously don't think a wall is an effective strategy for many reasons. And I'm not going to go into that right now, but the short version is that border's too long and it just won't work. There's too many ways you can cut a hole in the wall. They've already done it. The walls, the new walls that have been put up have already been compromised in numerous places, repeatedly, drilled through, tunneled under, climbed over. A wall is not the solution. Right? In some areas, it may be good to fortify walls in certain areas, but the idea of like a 2,000 plus mile border is a boondoggle, $20+ billion boondoggle. It would be more than that when it would be all done, and then it wouldn't solve the problem, right? But to say that Democrats don't care about illegal immigration is a lie. It's misrepresentation. Most Democrats want, they want an orderly immigration process. They do not believe in open borders, but they do believe in treating all people with dignity and respect, and not aggressively separating families at the border, illegal or otherwise, right? Illegal immigrants trying to cross the border for whatever reason, to get a job, to escape poverty, to escape violence. For whatever reason, you don't want them here, understand. You don't think they should be here because they're coming in illegal? You're right. They shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be crossing illegally. But people, when they're desperate, fleeing for their lives, sometimes break some laws. I think if I was trying to save my family's life, there'd be all kinds of laws I'd break if their lives were in jeopardy. And I think that's true for almost all of us. So if these people need to be apprehended, fair enough. If you want to send them back, okay. But treat them with decency. Don't separate them from their kids. Don't put their kids in cages like animals. I mean, we can do better than this. And this is not the compassionate conservatism that we were told about, that we were supposed to expect in the modern era. We've seen a descent of the Republican Party into fascism, straight up. A desire to completely overthrow the Congress and give the government over to Donald Trump, even though he lost the election, and sticking by that willingness to believe in lies, right? And not just about the election, and not just about QAnon, and not just turning a blind eye to just despicable people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who says like the Parkland shooting and Sandy Hook and Vegas shootings were all these false flag events, and this forest fires in California were started by Jewish space lasers. If you're to maintain your honor, if you're to maintain any sense of legitimacy or credibility, you can no longer be involved with these people. You have to cut them out of your lives. You have to cut them out. You can't have anything to do with it. And I'm saying that for all of us, moderates, liberals, everyone. All those people, and we know, most of us know somebody that's extreme. You're just gonna have to let them know I love you, I care about you, but I can't be around you if you're gonna talk about stuff like this, right? Yeah, you're just gonna have to keep it to yourself. I can't hear it. And can't have it. Don't support it. Don't believe in it. And if you're gonna try it, we're not gonna be able to hang out. We're not gonna be friends if you're gonna try and overthrow my government. We're not friends anymore, right? You can change your mind, decide, you want to come back and respect democracy. I'll be waiting. I love you. I care about you. I want you to be happy. But don't try and overthrow my country, man. It ain't cool. I ain't gonna let you. So that's how we need to handle it. We need to lock them out, whether that's in government, at work, at home, in life, in family, with friends. You just got to let them know this nonsense is over. We're not entertaining it anymore, right? People who make claims need to be able to defend them with hard evidence. And if you can't do that, you need to shut up. That needs to be the culture of the United States from now on. And that's a problem. We've seen the fact that so many people are willing to believe in QAnon, the fact that so many people are willing to believe in baseless conspiracy theories about the election being fraudulent, with no legitimate evidence presented at all. Our country's in trouble. We have to make our culture's in trouble. We have to make reason more of a priority. The value of evidence and reasoned arguments, that needs to come back. That needs to be one of the most important things. Can you imagine if we made like reason and compassion our most important priorities, how much better a country this could be for all of us? And that doesn't have to be like some, liberal nightmare that conservatives might be imagining, but one of respect for the rule of law and respect for each other. And I think we can all be better about that. Insulting each other, that never accomplishes anything. It never convinces any opposition. It never brings anybody around. So progressives, you're going to have to work with conservatives. You're going to have to make some compromises. Compromises are in the name of the game. Liberals, Democrats don't have much of a majority in Congress, either in Senate, just barely, and the House, not by many seats either. So we're going to have to compromise to pass stuff and to get things done. So we need you. We need your help. We need your help to get these things done, and we can't do it alone, right? We can do so much more with your help, and the policies would be so much more effective and so much better tailored with your input, right? Like, there was so little input from conservatives there was basically no input on the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. They refused to cooperate. It was complete obstructionist. Not one Republican supported it. And, we really could have used your help. We really could have used your cooperation, not only for the votes, but to make it better from the start. But you took yourselves out of the game by refusing to cooperate or work with us at all, right? And making these crazy claims that we didn't try and work with you. And we did. We absolutely did. Did we try as hard as we should have or could have? Probably not. Probably not. Because I very clearly remember during this period, around 2010, that Republicans were just so intransigent about Obama. They were just stonewalling everything he was trying to do. And that was a time of extreme absurdity. And that was bad then, but it's even worse now. Refusing to cooperate at all. Refusing to approve any judges, right? Refusing at every step of the way to cooperate. And instead of trying to fix the problems and weaknesses of Obamacare, like every major policy that's ever enacted is imperfect and needs to be tweaked and fixed, you just wanted to destroy it. Just repeal it. No effort to ever fix it or work with us to make it better. There's lots of things that could be done to make our healthcare system better, to make the Affordable Care Act better. And you've made no contribution to that whatsoever. You have no alternatives, no healthcare plan whatsoever. Your only attempt has been to try and repeal Obamacare well over 40 times. That's it. That's all you got. And then just let the companies, the healthcare companies and the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, basically just have their way. No. There need to be guardrails. There need to be rules. When you're talking about public health, when you're talking about people's lives, right, and a right to a certain level of healthcare, you need the government to ensure that's going to get done, because you cannot trust anyone, but especially private companies, to do the right thing, because they're not in the business to do the right thing. They're in the business to make money. They're not focused on doing the right thing. They're focused on how do we make more money, right? For our company, for ourselves, our families. How do we do that? And that's not bad. But you need somebody there to keep them in check if they get too carried away. We all need somebody in check, and that's what the government does. They keep us in check, right? And the conservatives keep the liberals in check, right? And the liberals keep the conservatives in check, right? Because sometimes the big problem with conservatives, right? They're great for smaller government. They're great for traditionally anyway. They're great for not spending a lot of wasting money. Again, traditionally, not recently, but they're willing to spend all kinds of money to bail out banks and big corporations and tax cuts, for the wealthy, for the middle class as well, but most of it goes to the top. They're all about that, but right, when there's a pandemic, or when there's a financial crisis, they'll bail out the banks, they'll bail out the big corporations. But when it's time to help out the individuals who are losing their jobs and not getting paid, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we're worried about the deficit. Well, that has to end. That's unacceptable, and most Americans clearly realize that, and clearly Democrats realize that. So there's a balance, all right? And sometimes a conservative response isn't an effective response. That's the response of Herbert Hoover in with the Depression and President Calhoun, they were conservative. Their response was not robust enough and was not effective. FDR's approach was very robust and was far more effective, and still took a long time for it to help improve the economy with all the different measures and policies that he enacted during the New Deal. So, there's a time and a place, right? Like if taxation goes too high, absolutely, we need to rein that in. But we've seen that taxes have actually been too low. We want to spend money on all these great things, but we're not really willing to pay for it. We just keep putting it all on the card. And now we've maxed out the card, right? So we need you to come back to us, right? Help us get things down. But you also have to understand, right? Get the money down. We got to pay down the debt, but we got to do it in a way that doesn't, we still got to take care of our people. People still need stimulus money. People got to be able to pay their bills. They need health care. Right? We got to fight climate change. We got to drop some serious money on that to drastically reduce our carbon output. This is an issue that has been that conservatives and the Republican Party, particularly, as well as major industry, have for decades now, about 4 decades, have done their best to stop any action to fight climate change whatsoever, and that has to end. The evidence is in. Climate change is real. Dangerous climate change is real, and humans are a major contributor to it. And these are facts well established by a wide range of evidence and accepted by an overwhelming majority of climate scientists. It's done, folks. It's done. All right? Accept it. If you want your kids and your grandkids to survive and thrive and not be like living in some miserable road warrior hellscape future, we have to fight climate change aggressively now. We're out of time. If you want to save our country from fascism, we have to fight that aggressively now. We're out of time. And we need you conservatives, but you've got to work with us. All right? And you have to renounce all extremism and renounce all connection with extremists. And I'll say this too for my friends, my progressive friends. You do as well. And the extremism in the Democratic Party is far less dangerous than the extremism in the right, as we can clearly see. And we've got Antifa, and Antifa gets carried away and does some stuff that's wrong. It's absolutely true, right? And sometimes some protesters get out of hand, right? And they throw stuff at cops, or they fight with cops, or they spray paint a police station, right? Or they trash a city hall. And that's wrong, straight up wrong. It shouldn't be tolerated, all right? All liberals, all progressives must renounce all rioting, all violence, all property damage. None of this BS about in defense of looting nonsense. That's got to go now. Those are all gifts to the far right. They use that stuff as an excuse. They say, well, they did it, so we can do it. And they do it 20 times worse, 20 times, 50 times worse. But they make the claim that somehow they're throwing rocks at the police in Portland is somehow equal to them trying to overthrow the Capitol. It's ridiculous, but they do it. And they do it all the time. So you got to stop doing that, right? No tolerance. There'd be no tolerance for political violence, right? Antifa likes to go, like far left folks like to go sometimes, and counter-protest, end the counter-protesting, right? Let the Proud Boys, let the far right people do their marches and do their protests, and just leave them alone. Don't even go. Don't even go. Don't go there. Don't yell at them. Don't throw crap at them. Leave them alone. Ignore them. And that's what should have been done all the time. Ignore all these losers. Ignore all these racists and ignore all these scoundrels and idiots. Ignore them like they deserve to be ignored. Right? That's the whole thing about polite society. You have polite society, people of decency don't have anything to do with scummy people, with people of low character. You just cut them out. You don't have anything to do with them. Go hang out with the other scumbags. All right? And that's good because we know where you are and we keep an eye on you. Right? And that's a thing too. We got a lot of people. There's too many people in this country that are sympathetic to the traitors. And a lot of them are in government. And that's going to have to change. We're going to have to aggressively get people out. Congress, government agencies, intelligence, military, police, and they're already reviewing people in the military. They're already talking about that now. They're going to have to start coming through and finding out where the extremists are. Out you go. If you support QAnon, out you go. If you think If you think the rioters were right to try and overthrow the government, you can't work for the CIA, you can't work for DHS, you can't work in the military. Sorry, you're gone. That's the new reality, and that's the way it has to be. That's it. All right? It has to be a culture of respect. Respect for Democrats, respect for Republicans, respect for the process of the machinery of government. Government has a job to do, right? Private companies can't do everything, right? There's certain things we need the government to do that private companies can't do, like keep private companies in check, right? Regulate, keep an eye on things, not over-regulate, right? That's where we need conservatives to really help us. What are those regulations that are duplicative? What are those regulations that are really, really unnecessary, and why? Tell us why, show us why, prove it to us. Don't just make a bunch of blanket claims that all regulation is bad. No, it's not true. A lot of regulation is really good. That's why your air is cleaner and your water is cleaner now than it was for decades, right? In most ways, most of our measures in life are better now than they've ever been. Even now with our screwed up situation, they're still better across the board. And much of that has to do with progressive policies that have ensured people don't get discriminated against, right? That ensure that your food is inspected, right? And it's safe to eat, that your water is safe to drink. And when the government screws that up, that's a huge deal. That's a major failure of government. That's why we need government to be well funded and accountable, right? And transparent so that we can fix problems. We need conservatives to help us with that, to make that system better, to make it work better. The approach from conservatives, Republicans in recent years, hasn't been to make the government work better. It hasn't been to make government more efficient. It's been to destroy government. It's been to eliminate government. And that's a nonsense, absurd mission. And I think most conservatives deep down know it's absurd. We need government. We need government for military. We need government to oversee contract law, to make sure that, right? That's the whole point of the court system, right? Is to make sure that people agreed, not just to not, kill each other and rob each other, but to honor agreements, right? That if you have a contract with someone, but you don't meet the requirements, you don't get paid for it, right? And you can't expect to get paid if you don't, and you get. If there's some disagreement, you take that to court. You settle it that way. You don't settle it through violence, right? You settle it through the rule of law, through court, right? Too many people are wanting to give up on that rule of law, and they want to just overthrow. They want to overthrow all the rules and have their way. And that's the problem. That was the whole problem with Trump, the lawlessness of Trump, that he could do whatever he wanted, that he would find some corrupt and jacked up way to get how he wanted it, right? And he would destroy all these norms and rules and guardrails that we had, and you would go along with it as long as you got your Supreme Court justices, your tax cuts, your deregulations, or sticking a finger in the lib's eye. That as long as you were getting some of that, you were going to go along for it. But you see where it's gotten us now. We're on the verge. We're on the verge. It's real, and it has to end. If we don't unite together, all lovers of freedom and democracy, liberals, moderates, conservatives together in the United States, all of us united, we may lose our country. Not right away, but in a few years. Now, I don't think Donald Trump will be coming back. I don't. I think he's spent. I don't think he realizes that necessarily, nor do his supporters. But I think they're not going to wait. They don't want to wait 4 years for Donald Trump to come back. And I don't think he'll have the vitality to come back then. I don't. He doesn't want to wait either. He wants to come back now. And his diehard extremist followers want him back now. And they're at work trying to find a way to make that happen now. They're still actively, some of these groups are still actively trying to find ways right now to overthrow our government and to commit terrorist acts against our country, to terrify us into submitting to their totalitarian ways and to their brutality and their dishonesty and their corruption. And so I want to give you this warning now. This is important. The Super Bowl is coming up this weekend on Sunday. the Super Bowl is an extreme soft target. Everyone should be on alert, and law enforcement and intelligence and Americans all across the country. All defenders of freedom should be ready. That is a large target that could be very likely the center for an attack. I hope not, and I hope I'm wrong. But it's high profile. It's non-military installation. There's a lot of people, and it's politically charged. I mean, you've got the young lady who gave the speech at Biden's inauguration. She's going to be speaking. What happens if some football players take a knee, or if they don't? This is potential for something to happen, and I hope nothing comes of it. But no one has said anything, and I think about this, no one has put out a warning that I've heard of. And maybe that was because they didn't want to put it in anyone's minds. But I can tell you, me saying this is not putting it in their mind. They've been planning for this already. These groups have been thinking about this already. And not just the Super Bowl, but all kinds of other scenarios where they can find ways to terrorize liberals, Democrats, anyone who's not going to agree with their agenda, even conservatives of principle who refuse to go along with their conspiracy theories and their lies and their attempts to overthrow our government. These people are at risk. These people are in danger. Joe Biden's not safe. Our leaders are not safe. And we shouldn't get comfortable. I know we all want to celebrate, the Democrats do, for the victory of Joe Biden, and we should. He's had 2 good weeks, getting as much done as he can to try and turn around things that undo a lot of the damage that Trump has. But we can't let ourselves fall into a false sense of security and not be ready. We must be vigilant. It's a vital concern. This is a long war. The racism in our country hasn't been resolved yet. We haven't fully faced this and accounted for our sins as a nation yet. We have to come to terms with it. And the time is now, and it's right in front of us. And we're out of time. We either get it right and survive, or we don't. It is possible that we could be looking at the fall of our country. Maybe not now, but the next election, right? In 2 years, the next election in 4. If Republicans continue to pretend like legitimate elections are no longer legitimate, how long can our country stand? This cannot continue. It cannot be accepted. None of us can accept it or allow it. We all have to work together. We have to put our ideologies aside. We have to put our petty differences aside. All right? We need to be more accepting of each other. And that goes to Democrats too, and liberals. Stop trying to cancel people out for every little thing. Let that stuff go. All right? Everything has to be about saving our country right now. Right? We want to pass our progressive agenda. Fine. But we're going to have to compromise to some degree to get it done. Understand that. And fight for your progressive goals, but do so honestly and respectfully. Okay? Respectfully. Be willing to listen and be willing to compromise to the best of your ability. All right? That is our charge. We have to hold up our end of the deal and be willing to work with them and be willing to give something up for their cooperation, when we need it. Maybe we don't always need it. Maybe we can do it without them sometimes, but not all the time. We're going to need their help. We're going to need their cooperation. And you got to give something to get something, folks. All right. You got to be willing to make sacrifices. Okay. And we're going to all have to be grown-ups about that to get it done. We got a lot of stuff to get done in a short time, and we got to get it moving fast. This is serious stuff. This is like 1930s, 1940s, like stuff. Serious times right now. Like the world is at a major juncture where we're looking at a situation where is the world going to continue to move towards democracy, or is it going to, because in recent years it's been becoming more autocratic again. We're seeing that. We're seeing that in a number of countries, especially the United States, and that's very alarming. And a lot of countries are following America's lead and following Trump's lead, becoming more repressive, more anti-democratic. And we have to make a decision. Is that the kind of world we're going to live in? Is this kind of country we're going to allow ourselves to have? And a great democracy once becomes a dictatorship. We can't allow that. We can't allow another Trump or someone worse to happen again. We have to reform our system so that's no longer a possibility. We cannot elect incompetent or corrupt members of society. Right? And they cannot be in Congress. Traitor sympathizers cannot hold a seat in Congress. Right? We have to raise our standards and we have to hurry up about it. And we got to get moving fast. We can do this if we do it together. We can do it. We can totally do it. It's hard. It's not easy, but it is doable. But we have to do it, and we have to do it now. So that's it for this episode of The Breakdown. I hope it gave you some important and good thoughts and ideas to consider about the issues that we're all facing right now. Now, in our next episode, we're going to be talking about human consciousness. And I've been talking about this for a while now, but it's actually happening. We will do this episode, and it's going to be the next one. But it's going to be not just about human consciousness, but human consciousness, not only from like the brain activity perspective, what parts of the brain are associated with consciousness, and what types of brain activity and parts of the brain are associated with consciousness, but also why consciousness? Why does it exist at all? And also we're going to look at animal consciousness, right? The different levels of consciousness in different animals. A number of animals have passed the mirror test. They can identify themselves in a mirror. Different types of apes, and a number of different animals can. So we're going to talk about that as well. All kinds of different animals that are far more intelligent and exhibit more advanced levels of consciousness. This includes fish. This includes ants. There's a lot of stuff. Crows, various types of birds, far more intelligent than we ever realized. What conscious world do they encounter? We're gonna talk about that as well. And yeah, the reason why consciousness. Why have it exist at all? Why is it here? And what are its origins? And how can we possibly know? There's a lot more questions than answers. And we're going to delve into all of that stuff and a lot more. It's a deeply complicated and fascinating topic with very few answers. But I look forward to discussing it with you. It's a fascinating area that I could research for years. But we're going to be bringing that discussion to you within the next week. So I look forward to that. We're going to make it really interesting in a lot of different ways, and it'll be nice to take a break from the politics as well. So thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care.